Hey, welcome to the module on tonality, the secret weapon of influence. Now, in this module, I'm going to reveal the single component that, when mastered, will set you apart from virtually every salesperson on the planet. You see, the bottom line is this, that all things being equal, similar product, similar offer, similar time frame, that prospects will buy from people they like versus from people they don't like. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a crappy offer or they don't need your product, people will buy from you because they're your friend. What I'm saying is that if you have a product that's great and they need it and the price is right, the offer makes sense, and someone else has virtually that identical offer and product, if they like you more than the other person, they're going to buy from you. The key is, and what so few salespeople realize, is how instantly that connection happens, that likability, so to speak, where someone either gets into rapport with you right there on the spot and just senses something about you that, wow, this is someone I want to do business with, or not. They just say, nah, this is not someone that I want to listen to, or just someone that doesn't connect with me on any level whatsoever, and they tune you out. In fact, I tell that story that day in the brokerage firm when I invented the straight line. I had those 12 brokers in front of me. I actually turned and drew on this board, and I drew that straight line for the first time. And I said, listen, guys, I said, if you don't capture these people's attention in literally 4 seconds flat, you're done. If they don't think that you have certain very critical elements right from the beginning, bam, they will tune out and not listen to you. Now, this goes far beyond anything you ever learned about before, about building rapport or establishing trust. This is about identifying those intangible elements of communication, that tonality, that subtle tonalities, and then lining them up and move them both emotionally and logically so your prospect has that unconscious and conscious connection with you. And because of that, they want to do business with you. And it's also about how to say things in a certain way that compels people to take immediate action. Let me back up for a second here and start by defining what rapport actually is. And what it really means is this. It's to capture and keep your prospect's attention and get them to genuinely connect with you and to like you on both a conscious and an unconscious level. Now, from the behavioral aspect here, what rapport is, it's how to use a combination of your words, your tonality, and your actual physiology, meaning how you move your body, to create a sense of alignment with another human being. Either you get into rapport with someone and have the ability to influence them, connect, or you are not in rapport and it's virtually impossible to influence them. Rapport, on the deepest, most fundamental level, it's about two things. Number one is I care. I care about you. I'm not here to just make a commission and rip your eyeballs out. I actually care about you. If someone thinks that you care, it goes a long way to getting into rapport. The second element is I'm just like you. And as human beings, we will associate based on commonalities. We don't associate based on our differences. Like if I was going to go join a club, just imagine if you and I were married, Victoria, right? And I came home and said, hey, honey, I just joined this amazing club. There's not a person there like me. I'm a Republican. They're Democrats. They're all dentists. I'm a construction worker, okay? They hate playing golf. I love golf. I joined. You'd say, what's wrong with you? I have nothing in common with them. But if I said to you, hey, Vic, just got a great club. They're all Democrats. They all love to do outdoor work. They all love playing golf. They all have the same religious beliefs. I join. You say, oh, well, you say, well, how much did it cost? But you might say to me, oh, go. At least it makes sense to you. Yeah. We associate, we connect based on similarities. So this idea of getting into rapport is partially about likability, finding common ground. Now, when we talk about this idea of communication, I want to just delve deeper into just for 1 second here and explain there's more to communication than actually meets the eye with the words that we say. In fact, when it comes down to it, the words are only a sliver of human communication. In human communication, there are three aspects. They have your tonality, which makes up about 40% of human communication, or 50% depending on what study you buy into. Then you have your
body language, which makes up 40 or 50% depending on what study you buy into. And then the last 9%, which is pretty much is constant, is the actual words that you say. Yeah. The words only make up 9% of human communication. Now, let me just stop for 1 second here. That's not to say that the words aren't absolutely critical. Because when you're talking, when you're actually speaking those words, they matter 100%. The point is you're communicating very often without even speaking. When you're speaking, the words do matter. But you so often are communicating on an unconscious level through tonality, through body language. And when all three of those are wrapped up in unison at the right level and being executed correctly, bam, then you're really making headway. And that's how you get yourself, boom, into that instant and that powerful, that must have rapport.
Because I don't want you to get the wrong idea about your words, that you can say things that don't make sense or kind of, just go off the reservation and talk about things that are not germane to the sale you're making. I call that going off into Pluto, where you're not, showing the person that you're really on the ball in the sale. You can't say things that don't make sense. You see, despite this being only 9% of communication, when you're actually speaking, it matters 100%. You understand what I'm saying here? It's not that it only, oh yeah, my words only are 9% important while I'm saying them. No. Your words are absolutely crucial while you're saying them. And that is why we learn how to use these special sort of scripts that I'm going to teach you about in a later module that actually show you what to say, exactly when to say it, how to say it, and so on and so forth. See, if you're out there saying things that don't make sense, you break rapport with people. And yeah, you can get back into rapport, but obviously you make it a whole lot harder on yourself if the things that you say are just not making sense. So my point is this. When I say that 9% of your communication is words, what I'm saying is that 91% of the time, you're communicating without speaking. But when you do actually open your mouth, you want to make sure that gems come out. The words that come out need to make sure they feed this bigger idea that I care about the prospect, and you should if you're doing things right and ethically. And B, that on some level you're just like them, you're relatable, and you're in rapport, and bam, moving down the straight line. Now, let's go back for a second to that magic moment many years ago when I invented the straight line. And I was in front of my room of guys, 12, 13 ragtag salespeople, and I gave them that, that great speech that, don't you get it? Every sale's the same. And I went to a board that said, watch, there's an open and there's a close. Now, as you move someone down the straight line, it's goal-oriented communication. You're pushing them from the open to the close. And what I said to them was, if in those first 4 seconds that you speak to someone, the people on the other end of the line don't perceive that you're, number one, sharp as a tack, number two, enthusiastic as hell, 3, an expert in your field, then they will tune out. You're done. Now, in truth, you have 10 or 15 seconds to play catch-a-ball. They could think that you don't really have what it takes in the beginning. But if in those first 4 seconds, 10 seconds after, they don't believe you're sharp, enthusiastic, and expert in your field, very, very difficult to influence them.
And in those first few seconds, to be perceived sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, as an expert in your field, those 3 things chunk up to where the other person says, he's probably a person worth listening to. Yeah. And that's why they listen. That's why they'll even listen to what you have to say. And then if you want to even chunk that to a higher level still, they're worth listening to because they can help me achieve my goals. They can help me get what I want. The one great mistake that novice salespeople make is they lose sight very often that the reason people are listening to them is not to get what they want, I mean that the salesperson wants, is because the people listening because they want to get something that they want. They have a need to fill, right? That's the only reason they're not hanging up the phone and walking out there. They're trying to fill their old need. And when they look at you as a person who could potentially give that to them, they tend to listen. So that's something that happens the very first 4-5 seconds. Maybe by 15 to 20 seconds, it's sort of lockstep. I mean, it's either there or it's not, and you can't play catch-up anymore.
And if they don't perceive you right away in those first 4 seconds that you're number one, sharp as a tack. Now notice here, this is a behavioral competency, to be sharp on the ball. They don't perceive that instantly. They say, you know, why should I listen to this person? And they just tune out. Next, that you're enthusiastic as hell. Remember, enthusiasm is another behavioral competency. They say, wow, what's this guy have to talk about? Why is it so good? Must be good if he's that enthusiastic. They can't help but want to listen more. And 3, which is authoritative, another competency, an expert in your field. Bam, when these 3 things are present right in those first few seconds, what they say is, maybe I should listen to this person. Maybe this is that person that could help me get what I want. Now you say to yourself, well, Jordan, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, if someone thinks I'm really sharp on the ball, I'm an expert, and I'm really enthusiastic, they'll say, yeah, of course, listen to this guy, right? But how could they possibly know that in 4 seconds flat? It can't be because of some magic words I say. You can't say, listen to me, I'm sharp, enthusiastic. You can't do that, right? It takes kind of a long time through words to get that sort of point across to somebody. So if it's not the words that establish that, guess what it is? It's your tonality. It's that ability that in that first pop out of the phone or in person or the way you dress when they lay eyes on you, that bam, something registers unconsciously that they just say to themselves, wow, this is a person worth listening to. Now, conversely, let's go the other way. Let's say you pick up the phone, you dial, you don't sound the right way, and you sound unenthusiastic, you sound like a dullard, and you don't sound like you're an expert, like a novice in your field. What do people do? They hang up the phone. Make sense? Remember, sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, an expert in your field. And now let's take that to some real pure science and behavioral competencies here in terms of this, communication. 9% words, 50% tonality, 40% body language, 41% body language. Here's the question. If you're on the phone talking to someone, can they see you? There's no body language, right? They can't see you. It's just your voice over the phone and the words you say. Can they see you? You're probably saying, well, no, there's no way they can see you. Answer is yes, they can. You see, whether or not they can actually see you in person, they will make a mental image of you based on how you sound and what you say. Either that mental image serves this higher purpose, which is that you are a person worth listening to, or a very bad place to be, which is this is someone I should really hang up on because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And that comes across, believe it or not, in 4 seconds on the phone. And in person, it's a quarter of a second. They've actually tested this out, our psychologists scientifically, where they hook you up to a functional magnetic resonance imaging technology, and they flash a picture in front of someone, and bam, the brain spikes up and down in a quarter of a second to the judgment center. And our brain judges based on what they see, whether it's good, bad, sharp, not sharp, and makes a decision accordingly. So if that's so important, that mental image is so important, those words are so crucial, what do? How do you get to that point, whether you're on the phone or in person, that no matter what happens, no matter how you're feeling inside, that you come off the right way, which is sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, and an expert in your field? When you can get to that point, you've really begun to master the art of tonality. Let me back up for a second here and start by defining what rapport actually is. And what it really means is this. It's to capture and keep your prospect's attention and get them to genuinely connect with you and to like you on both a conscious and an unconscious level. Now, from the behavioral aspect here, what rapport is, it's how to use a combination of your words, your tonality, and your actual physiology, meaning how you move your body, to create a sense of alignment with another human being. Either you get into rapport with someone and have the ability to influence them, connect, or you are not in rapport and it's virtually impossible to influence them.
Rapport, on the deepest, most fundamental level, it's about 2 things. Number 1 is I care. I care about you. I'm not here to just make a commission and rip your eyeballs out. I actually care about you. If someone thinks that you care, whether you do or not, they think you care, it goes a long way to getting into rapport. The second element is I'm just like you. Meaning on some level, we have some common ground. There's some likability, so to speak. And likability, in fact, is one of the core elements of influence. And it's a term that was actually founded by a guy named Robert Cialdini, a professor who specialized in sales psychology. And he came up with this concept of likability that's on two levels. One is I'm just like you. We have something in common. And as human beings, we will associate based on commonalities. We don't associate based on our differences. Like if I was going to go join a club, just imagine if, you and I were married, Victoria, right? And I came home and said, hey, honey, I just joined this amazing club. There's not a person there like me. I'm a Republican. They're Democrats. They're all dentists. I'm a construction worker, okay? They hate playing golf. I love golf. I joined. You'd say, what's wrong with you? I have nothing in common with them. But if I said to you, hey, Vic, just got a great club. They're all Democrats. They all love to do outdoor work. They all love playing golf. They all have the same religious beliefs. I join. You say, oh. Well, you say, well, how much did it cost? But you might say to me, oh, go. At least it makes sense to you. Yeah. We associate, we connect based on similarities. So this idea of getting into rapport is partially about likability, finding common ground.
Remember what I said earlier on? I said in the introduction, I said that on some level here, that all things being equal, people will do business with someone they like versus someone they don't like. Well, this is really where rapport starts to develop. In that beginning, first few seconds, bam, they say, wow, I'm like this person. They couldn't even describe it in words if you asked them, but they just felt it inside on a gut level, and because of that, it opened them up to be influenced by you. And of course, this aspect of I care, meaning this person cares, what does that really mean? What that means is that this is a salesperson that has my best interest at heart. They're not there just to make a sale or earn a commission. They really care about me, my family, my outcome. So again, on this sort of gut level here, rapport can be boiled down to these two very powerful things. Number one, you as the salesperson care about them, and you as the salesperson are just like them. Once those two things are established, things get much easier from there.
Now, I just want to revisit one of the behavioral competencies here before we move on. And that's the competency of engagement, which is absolutely critical here. What I mean by engagement is first, that you make sure that you've captured your prospect's attention and interest, that they're almost hanging on your every word as opposed to listening with one ear. And then second, to continue to hold that interest and attention so you have the opportunity to build more and more certainty in your prospect as you move them down the straight line from the open to the close. See, if you're able to capture someone's attention in those 3 or 4 seconds flat, but you can't hold on to it throughout the entire process, then you'll end up falling out of rapport with them and most likely put them to sleep. Either way, you're dead in the water if that happens, and you simply won't be able to close the deal, no matter how great your product or your offer might be. In essence, to have strong engagement, you need to make sure that you're almost the most memorable, the most compelling force in the room, as opposed to someone that just blends in, which will simply not get the job done. You do this by using the exact right tonality and the exact right body language as well, which includes adapting your style so that you're staying in perfect tune with your prospect, which helps you maintain that lockstep, tight rapport.
Another element of rapport that I want to get into here before we get specific here with tonalities and when to use them is this idea of, is rapport a constant? In other words, okay, great, you meet someone, you get those first few seconds and bam, you get into tight rapport with them. Is that good enough? And the answer to that question is one big giant no. See, the biggest mistake that salespeople make, and this is crucial, is that they get into rapport with someone, but then somewhere along the way they fall out of rapport, right in the middle of a sale. They say one word or make one statement that doesn't quite jive what the person was thinking or feeling, and in that moment, boom, rapport starts to wane. And what happens very often, I see this all the time when I'm training salespeople, is the average salesperson will simply not pick up on the fact that they've broken rapport, and they move on, and they try to influence and eventually close while they're not in tight rapport. So let me explain to you exactly how rapport looks. Watch this being your straight line sale. You're open, here's your close, okay? Now, if someone's in rapport, let's say this is, boom, perfectly tight rapport right here, then as you go through the sale, it keeps building and building and building and building until, bam, when they close, they're at the highest level of rapport, right? It would be nice if that was actually how a sale went, but it doesn't go that way. How it goes is this. You're in rapport, and then you fall out of rapport. Then you get back into tighter rapport. Then it goes up and down. You go in and out throughout the sale. And as you go down, and then you see yourself falling out, you stop, and you make sure you get back into rapport. And then you can move forward again. But you cannot break rapport and just keep going for the close and trying to, make the sale. Okay? So you need to be very, very conscious here that rapport is sort of like this fluctuating thing that happens and moves throughout the sale. And then your goal is that each time you fall out of rapport, not do you just get back into rapport, but you get back into even tighter rapport with someone. So the goal is going to be now, you're going to start to learn ways to notice when you're falling out of rapport, and not just get back into rapport, but actually build even more rapport. And when you can do that, when you can establish that I care, I'm just like you, and then notice my tonality right there. I didn't say, I care, I'm just like, I said that I care, that I'm just like you. When you do that with someone, it connects through tonality on that unconscious level, and bam, you make your job so much easier, especially with the words that you say. Now, here's the good news. In terms of tonality and mastering that art of sounding sharp, enthusiastic, and being an expert at an ability to sort of pop it out there literally in the first 4 seconds of a combination, or even less time than that when you're in person, the good news is it's an entirely learnable skill. It's not something that either you're born with or you're not born with, you can never learn. Yeah, like listen, me, myself, I happen to be born with really, really good on-target tonality. I just instinctively know kind of when to sort of, put on the right tone, raise my voice, lower my voice, how to capture someone's imagination and hold it. But over the years, I've taught this skill in this very specific way, which you're going to learn in a moment here, of actually how to break out these tonalities any time you want. You see, here's the thing. You might be saying, oh my God, there's, these tonalities. How am I going to ever learn them? It's just, seems like it's so much information. Guess what? You already are using them. You just don't know it. You see, the difference is that I'm consciously aware of when I need to pull a tonality out of the bag, use it to make a point, and when to use another one to make a different point here. You've had times in your life where you've sounded absolutely certain or absolutely enthusiastic, or you told someone a secret and you lowered your voice. The problem is you're doing it unconsciously. You don't do it on purpose. So what happens is on certain days when you're really on and, feeling in the flow, yeah, your tonalities are, boom, spot on. But many other days when you're not quite in state, you're not at the best you can be, your tonalities simply disappear and vanish, and you watch your sales results vanish. So again, this is an entirely learnable skill, and I always talk about this thing called charisma. What is charisma? Is it like this magic gift that's only for the select few? And people say, oh, he's got charisma, she doesn't have charisma, whatever, right? What a load of crap. Charisma, of all things, is a learnable skill. And I teach it to people with a straight line every single day. And you, with the time I've done, will be a master of charisma. You know that charisma? It's a misunderstood word, charisma. Charisma is like, she's got charisma. He doesn't have charisma. What a load of crap. Anybody can have charisma. It's made up of 3 things. Number 1, it's the effective use of tonality, to be able to say the right tonalities, to get the right point across with your tonality. 2, appropriate body language. How do you shake hands? How close do you stand to someone? How do you look in their eyes? The firmness, that great, So it's tonality. Yeah.
Number two, body language. And number three is just not saying stupid things to people, because you say something stupid, they're just like, "Ugh, get away from me, But think about it. With charisma, there's people who are charismatic and there's people who look repulsive. Typically, when you find someone who repulses you, it's not so much what they say. It's their body language. It's how they say it. It's something icky about them, right? And it's the sort of unconscious feeling you get. And it's body language and tonality. It's not the words, typically.
Think about it for a second. That someone that walks into a party, and even not even a sales setting, right? And they start saying ridiculous things. What happens? We get repelled. Someone comes in and they're boring and then they're dull and their voice is monotone. What do? You tune out. Someone comes in, they stand too close to you and they invade you. What do? You walk away. Someone that has charisma, they master that ability to just capture you with words, the body language, okay, and saying them in a way that just keeps you hanging on. That's charisma, and it's an entirely learnable skill which you will master in short order. Now, not that I want to keep beating on this idea of charisma like a dead horse here, but there's one more point still that I have to explain to you because it's so crucial in terms of sales. Now remember, charisma is these three things: tonality, body language, and not saying stupid things. The problem that most salespeople have is that they can speak intelligently about their product, about themselves, about their company, maybe about life itself. They can speak intelligently for maybe 3, 4, or 5 minutes. The good ones maybe 7 or 8 minutes. But when the sale goes past that 7 or 8 minute mark, like most sales do, they start running out of intelligent things to say, and they start saying that stupid bleep, right? You get it? The words stop making sense. They say something that just doesn't make sense at all. And what happens is they break that charisma, that magnetic field breaks down, they fall out of rapport, and bam, now they have to work twice as hard to get back into rapport once again. This is why it's so important with the straight line. And again, I'm going to really get into this in ultimate detail when we talk about the script, about learning what I call language patterns, having these sort of bite-sized chunks of words that you can put together and say over and over again, slightly differently each time, but they just sound good. They perceive you to be as sharp, enthusiastic, expert in your field. It doesn't even matter if they don't even really add up to that much, but there's sort of these filler words and phrases that allow you to just, no matter what, seem like you're right on the ball. You cannot master tonality by putting on headphones and falling asleep and waking up with the knowledge. The only way you could really master tonality is through practicing and practicing and drilling again and again and again. This is one of those things where practice makes perfect, and also practice, even this much of it, yields massive results right away. So let's dig right into it right now here. I'm going to show you some very, very powerful tonalities on film here, and you'll see that when I say something one way, it has one impact, and when I say it another way, it has quite a different impact, in fact, quite more profound impact. Now, in fact, there are 8 crucial tonal patterns in all. These 8 tones that you must learn to muster at any given moment while you're influencing, while you're persuading. And we're going to learn each one of those ad nauseum and make sure that you master them at the highest level so they actually become part of you. And as I said earlier, this is not as difficult as it sounds, because you've already used them. You see, at one point in your life, you used each of these tonalities in normal course of conversation. The difference is that in the past, you weren't consciously aware of precisely what they could do and precisely when to use them. Now, with the straight line, we're going to actually make them conscious. We're going to actually dissect them out, make them ingrained into your DNA. And then with the tactical part of the straight line, we'll show you precisely when to use them and how to get the greatest impact from them. Now, there's one more point here I want to get into. It's very important here before I move on to the exact tonal patterns and we start to really send them home. And that point is this issue of logic versus emotion when people are making decisions. There's an old adage, people say, well, people make the decisions logically, or people buy and make the decisions emotionally. The truth is, both of them are crucial. You see, ultimately, people buy on emotion but they justify their decisions with logic. If either one of them is missing, it's very, very tough to close at the highest level. So what we learn to do with the straight line is move people both logically and emotionally, sometimes at the same time, sometimes at separate times, but ultimately we wrap it up in such a way that as we get to that point of absolute certainty, bam, it's both on a logical and an emotional level. Now, here's the key. Words, typically, the words that we say are what move people logically. They're facts, they're figures, they're things that we can say, okay, I heard what he said, and yes, it does add up, or no, it does not add up. So the words that we say is typically what moves people logically while we're selling. But what moves them emotionally is our tonality. It's how we say it. Now let's dig right in here very deeply into the actual 8 core tonalities, and I'll demonstrate them myself here on camera so you can see how I say them, and you'll see the difference when I'll mock, what it's like when someone doesn't use the right tonality, and then I'll give you the right tonality, and you'll see the difference in how it not just moves you logically, but most importantly, moves you emotionally as well. Okay, so number one, the first tonality that you must master is something called the tonality of scarcity. S-C-A-R-C-I-T-Y, scarcity. It's human nature. Okay, one of the fundamental influences of human beings is we want to have possession of things that are in short supply. It's called scarcity. And we use it all the time to help us close sales as salespeople. We use it in terms of informational scarcity. The information itself is scarce. The actual product itself is not that many left. It's scarce. We jump on, and scarcity combined with urgency, meaning if you don't do it now, it'll be gone, causes people to take dramatic, effective, and immediate action. Now, just so you know, as human beings, we're hardwired into our DNA to want things that are in short supply. It goes back to the caveman days when there simply wasn't enough food or shelter around, so when things were in short supply, we ran for them. It's, a protective mechanism. So how do you muster that tonality of scarcity? And along with scarcity is something called urgency. Not just that you need to buy something, but buy it right now. And the way you do it is through some modification of a whisper. So now watch how I say something a certain way and tell me the impact, or just think about the impact here, and then I'll say it the right way, and you'll see how much more profound the words are. So I say to you, listen, I have 16 of these items left, and then they're going to be completely gone forever. That's a neutral tonality. I say there's 16 of these items left, and then they'll be gone forever. Or I say, listen, there's only 16 of these items left, and then they're gone forever. Which one sounds better to you? Obviously, the second. It has so much more of an impact on someone's psychology than simply saying that something is in short supply. Watch, I say, listen, it's in really short supply, or listen, it's in really short supply. There's this tone, it's a whisper with a bit of urgency. I'm going to say it again. Yeah, this is really in short supply, which is what, you ever go to a place and say, oh, yeah, there's really not that many of these left. And you're like, uh-huh. Or the guy says, listen, there's really not that many of these left. And you're like, what, real? And you're immediately moved into the, uh-oh, I better get in your heart, a little shot of adrenaline. That's how you master this art of scarcity. You just keep saying it yourself into a mirror. You say, listen, really, there's not that many of these left. Or, listen, there's really not that many of these left. And look at yourself in the mirror. You're just test it again and again. Get a partner if you can, and just go back and forth and drill, drill, drill until you master that very simple shift in your voice from, yeah, there really aren't that many of these left, to, listen, there really are not that many of these left. And watch that when you do say it the right way, your results, they go up like tenfold or even 100-fold. Very, very dramatic change. Or he's saying, all I'm asking for is give me one shot. Give me one shot. Urgency. Not, give me one shot. It's just give me one shot. There's sincerity in there too, but it's urgency. You got to act now. It's that whisper with a little bit of force. It's not like, you have to act now. That's a secret. It's not urgency and it's not scarcity. Scarcity is a lower voice with some kind of zets behind it. So it's, listen, the key to making money, that's urgency. The key to making money. the way to get involved. It's a lower voice with some force.
Now, again, when you use a tonality like that, okay, it is so powerful if you have someone that really wants to make the decision, but they're kind of not so certain of the time frame. They think they have all the time in the world, and all of a sudden you throw in that tonality of urgency and scarcity, and you explain to them, listen, you actually don't have the key to making money. So either we're running out of supply, or there's going to be an announcement of some sort of prices is going up, and you say, well, prices are going up, or no, Victoria, prices are going up. Which one's more powerful? The second, where I say it in a whisper.
Here's another one. Very often we want to present our idea to somebody, right? And one of the things we learn with the actual tactics of the straight line is we ask for permission to tell someone about our product or idea or whatever we're offering. We don't just start, pitching them and hey, here's what it is. We say to them, listen, if you have 60 seconds, I'd like to share an idea with you. You got a minute? Now notice my tonality. I say, if you have 60 seconds, I want to share an idea. Got a minute? You have a minute? I don't say to you, got a minute? Huh? I say, watch the difference. Say, if you have 60 seconds, I'd like to share an idea with you. Got a minute? That's called the reasonable man tone. I'm just, got a minute? You're reasonable, I'm reasonable. Anybody's got a minute. Watch this. If you say to someone, if you have 60 seconds, I want to share an idea with you. You got a minute? 99% of people say, well, yeah, sure, I got a minute, because everybody's got a minute. If you say it like, if you have 60 seconds, I want to share an idea with you. You got a minute? Your response rate drops by half. Because one way, you are the reasonable, kind, helping person. At this point, you've already established that you care, that you really want to know about their health and well-being, whatever it might be, right? So you're already in a bit of rapport, and then you give them that reasonable man tone saying, you got a minute? And bam, they're like, yeah, sure, why not? He's a nice guy, he cares, he's just like me, and bam, you're in.
And an example of the reasonable man would be where you say to someone, on your closing, let's say you get them to a point where they're almost there, and you say, give me a shot, and, you're going to be very, very impressed. Then you say, sound fair enough? Now look at my hands. Sound fair enough? My body language for reasonableness is I put my hands up. Sound fair? And I say, sound fair enough? And the implied words that come after that is, I'm reasonable, you're reasonable. It's a reasonable thing, right? I don't have to say, I'm reasonable. Without the tonality, I have to say, listen, I'm reasonable, you're reasonable, come on, just do it. But I don't have to say it. Instead I say, sound fair enough? And your voice saying, well, he's being reasonable, I want to be reasonable. I've always taught it's good to be reasonable, and that's the unconscious communication. You start to actually affect someone else's dialogue. That's your reasonable man tonality.
Let me give you another tonality for a second, called absolute certainty. Now notice I make this move. You've seen me do it here a bunch of times. I say, and listen, the bottom line, and I smack my hand into my palm, the back of my hand into my palm, and it makes me get to that next level of certainty. That's the tone of absolute certainty. And you notice that I'm always kind of moving my body around and creating that energy using my physiology. Now, typically, just so you know, again, as I took my tie off, I seldom even wear a jacket, because typically when I'm selling, watch, I would never sell with a jacket on unless I was in a specific situation where I actually had to have a jacket. I would take my jacket off here, just throw this over here to the side, okay, and I roll my sleeves up, and this is typically my mode of selling where I'm most comfortable. Jacket off, shirt sleeve rolled up, and it's imagine how you see typically most people when they're in their mode walking around in the groove, and I'm moving my body, and you'll notice that you can generate these emotions, these tonalities, much, much easier. Now notice when I actually almost misspoke myself. I said, you generate these emotions. I said, oops, I mean tonalities, but actually they're one and the same. See, my tonalities are actually the emotions that are attached to my words. So if I say to you, scarcity, it's in short supply, well, you don't really quite feel it, the emotion of scarcity. But when I say, listen, it's in short supply, and I put my hands and I close, it's in short supply, there's an emotional feeling that the word creates. There's almost this law of physiology that the more you move your body, the easier it is to maintain that peak positive state. You know, you move your body, it sort of almost triggers the emotion. So I want you to be aware as I move my body, as you're watching my words come out of my mouth, notice how I will use my physiology to help me muster those certain tonalities. Manage your voice in a way where you create an unconscious dialogue in the other person. They actually start hearing words that you're not saying. You end up controlling the conversation every step of the way and have their unconscious dialogue working for you versus against you. Now let's go to the next one, which is the I care tonality, or the I really want to know tonality. So it's when I say, hey, John, how you doing today? Like, I really want to know. I care. Versus, yeah, John, how you doing today? Yeah, John, how's it going today? John, how's it going today? Versus, hey, John, how's it going today? And look at my hands together. Okay, it's not like, John, how you going today? It's, how you going today? I really want to know. And that creates that little bit of reciprocity. And so when they say, well, okay, nice person, he sounds like he cares, I'll listen further. Let me just put a few together to you right now into a phone call that you typically would make. Let's say you were going to speak to someone that you never spoke to before, right? You got a referral, so you knew their name, and had a connection. So you call up, you get through the secretary, you get the person on the phone, you say, hey, John, Jordan Belford calling from Sales Acuity in Australia. How you going today? And he's like, okay, pretty good. And he matches my tonality, right? Okay, I'm okay, pretty good. Versus I say, yeah, hey, it's Jordan calling from Sales Acuity in Australia. How you doing today, John? He's like, I'm all right. And immediately the whole conversation is framed differently because of the tonality I use. The words were the same. In one way, I have the guy right where I want him emotionally, okay? I said, hey, Jordan Belfort calling? He's like, who, what? And he thinks for a second, then I say, how you going today? And he's like, I'm okay. And before he knows it, he's like, oh, I like this guy. He doesn't work against me, or she doesn't work against me in her internal dialogue. It's in conjunction. They're in that sort of that weird magnetic zone that's called unconscious rapport. See, conscious rapport is more about the similarities and, you have some things in common with them. They can actually, oh, yeah, I like this person because of, versus unconscious rapport, which is, I just kind of like that person. There's something about them that's just likable. And as I said before, the I care and being like, or likability, are two of the most critical elements of getting into rapport and maintaining rapport. Next, here's another one. Very simply, when you first pick up the phone or you're in person and you're talking to somebody, very often one of the lines that will come up should say, you're calling from somewhere. So let's say it's me, Jordan Belfort, calling from Sales Acuity, the company here in Australia. So one way of saying that would be, hi, Jordan Belfort calling from Sales Acuity in Australia. How are you today? That would be a very basic, neutral way. It's called a declarative statement. I'm making a declaration. Jordan Belfort calling from Sales Acuity in Australia. Boom, boom, boom. There's no tonal changes, right? Now watch how I take that statement and I turn it into a question. So I say, hi, it's Jordan Belfort, and I raise my voice up at the end, calling from Sales Acuity, and I raise my voice up in the end, in Australia. And now, what are you doing right now? If I say, watch, hi, it's Jordan Belfort, you're like, huh, who, what? People will start actually saying, wait a second, am I supposed to know who this person is? And what happens in that instant, when you phrase a regular statement as a question, it paralyzes the person's internal dialogue from working against you. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by that their internal dialogue. As you're persuading and influencing, as you're selling, right, you're speaking to your clients, and they're listening and narrating as you're speaking. They're judging you as you speak. So you're making your case, and you're saying something, and they're saying, oh, he's an idiot. This guy's a moron. Oh, my God. Right away, they're just saying, their mental dialogue is going a mile a minute. So as you're trying to influence them, they're narrating against you. So what we do in the beginning of a sale very quickly is, rather than giving the client the chance to sit there and boom, just tune out and start saying, I don't know this guy, who is this, what is this? Let's say you're cold calling, right? They don't know who you are. So if I say it's Jordan Belford, they say, who the hell is that? Who's Jordan Belford? I don't know. That's how fast their mind, it's like, I don't know, they're so fast, they can't even say it themselves, but their mind is judging and saying, I don't want to be on this call, this is a waste of my time, and you never get the chance to influence. So when you do this, I say, watch, it's Jordan Belfort. So you say, who, what, and it freezes your internal dialogue. So we call that phrasing a declarative as a question. So how it sounds is this. Hi, it's Jordan Belfort calling from Sales Acuity in Australia. And they're like, what, who, what? And before, I'm like, how you going today? So they'll be like, okay. And they'll say to you, okay, because their mind is still trying to say, am I supposed to know this person? Am I out of the loop on something? Because every human being wants to have that feeling they're in the loop. They don't want to be caught out of the loop. So by doing that in the beginning, and it might sound very simple here, but you literally can increase the percentage of people who will not hang up on you on a phone call by phrasing your opening statement as a question. So now what happens is you would say, Jordan Belfort calling from Sales Acuity, Australia, and they're like, And they're like, okay, yeah, and now you have a chance to say your next sentence and influence. Now, let me say this. You're saying to me, okay, Jordan, I get that, and I guess that on some level makes sense, right? I phrase it as a question, yes, and they think they don't know who I am, so listen. Are they going to buy because of that? The answer is absolutely not. I'm not saying here that you can use any one specific tonality and make someone say, oh, wow, since you phrased it as a question, I'm going to sign the dotted line. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you open them up for continued influence. And what happens is this. As you start using each of these tonalities in perfect congruence with your script, as you move down the straight line and you sound right and you keep them in the sale, you're building your case and building your case, you're keeping them in the game, and bam, then yes, at the end, it will cause them to buy. In other words, the tonalities keep them in the game, and they establish certain emotions, as you'll see in a moment here, that allow them to get into rapport with you, and ultimately, because they're in rapport, be influenced. Next tonality, I call this the series of 3 uptones. And I used it before, and I'll use it again, where it say, it's Jordan calling from Sales Acuity in Australia, up, up, up. Now, this is something that you use all the time in sales, not just in the beginning. Let me give you an example here of how a child uses it. My daughter, whenever she wanted something from me, she would use this weird tonality that all kids have, and a lot of us adults forget. And that's when they speak to you in a way where they almost assume that you actually heard it before or said it before. Like, you never said something to them, but they'll say, like, Dad, you told me we're going for ice cream, right? You said so. And you're like, what? Did I? And you actually start, like, I didn't tell them. Now, you never actually said it to your child that you'll take them for ice cream or to the toy store, but they said, you said you're going to the toy store, right, Dad? You said so. And you're like, did I? Okay. And you actually get influenced and led down the path to doing something simply because someone used this series of 3 uptones. So again, it's very, very crucial. You'll see this actually when we go through the straight line in more detail, tactically, of exactly where you use these uptones in the scripts and how you move people into a state of absolute certainty because of it. Now, next tonality here. This one's a good one. It's called the presupposing tone. It's when you use a tone of voice that makes it sound like it's so good that it's even beyond question whether or not they're going to make a decision or whether or not they'll make money with something. Let's say it's an investment you're selling. So, and you're looking to sort of, you're close to getting them there, but they're not quite there. And you say, listen, start off, pick up, start off with, program 101. You'll make money with it. But more importantly, what we could do for you over the long term in the way of this and that, and you start listing other benefits. But that first part, you say, you'll make money with it, and you actually use a tone that's it's so powerful, what I have, that it's beyond even whether or not it's good or bad. We all know it's good. And then they're like, yeah, and they start thinking, well, they say, yeah, I guess so. We'll make, and they almost say you're right. They almost like sign off, yeah, I guess he's right, because you use the tonality that simply presupposes that they're going to make the decision. It presupposes that something is good. And it's a very powerful way to get someone to kind of move that last 5% from saying, yeah, it sounds pretty good, to saying, yeah, it's good beyond approach, not even a point talking about it. It's called your presupposing tone. Now, next tonality is absolutely crucial for the first few seconds of the sale. It's crucial elsewhere also, but in those first few seconds, there's this tone that you have when you first get on the phone, they first hear your voice, that establishes a couple of different things. Now, watch the difference here, okay? When I walk into a room of telemarketers or salespeople, typically they're making their calls, they'll pick up the phone, they'll say, yes, hi, Mr. Jones, how are you today? At that level, or Mr. Jones, hi, yes, how are you today? Yes, good, thanks for asking. And that's this sort of level of enthusiasm versus the person says, hi, is Mr. Jones there? Hey, Mr. Jones, it's Jordan Belford. How you doing today? How you going today? And that happy, like, how you going today? How you doing today? That sort of upbeat, enthusiastic, happy tone. Now, you're probably saying, oh, Jordan, that is so stupid. Come on. You mean to tell me that if I just, sound happy and peppy and bursting with love, people are going to actually listen to me? Guess what? The answer is yes. People cannot help, because we have some powerful force inside us. It's called reciprocity, which I'm going to get to later. It's a fundamental law of influence here, that when someone gives us something first, whether it's even a compliment or a pleasant greeting, we almost have this unconscious obligation to return that in kind. So if I pick up the phone and I say, Mr. Jones, how you doing today? Versus, yeah, Mr. Jones, how you doing today? One says, yeah, Mr. Jones, how you doing today? I've been doing this crap for so long right now, I don't really care how you're doing. I'm just asking you to be kind and nice because I want to get and rip your throat out and sell you something. That's what the basic tone says. Versus, yeah, Mr. Jones, how you doing today? Meaning, I really want to know because I actually care about you. And if we go back for a second now and we say, one of the key elements of rapport is what? I care. So by this simple act of speaking to someone like you actually give a damn about them, you dramatically increase the response rate. So now all of a sudden, watch, you say, wow, wait, actually, this is actually better than I thought. So not only can I phrase something as a question, then I follow it up with a really pleasant, not like, John, how you doing today? Oh my God. And you're like, then it's like, this guy's crazy. And they'll hang up on you, think you're out of your mind, right? But it's that sort of sweet spot. And I'm going to give it to you a few times here so you can mirror this as a sweet spot. It's like, John, how you going today? How you doing today? Not, John, how you doing today? Oh my, you're not like Tony the Tiger. It's great, right? So if John says to you, Tony, watch the difference. So he says to you, yeah, I'm doing good. You don't say, great. Oh, thank you. You sound like an idiot, right? But he says to you, he says, oh, I'm pretty good. You don't say, great. Do you know how many times I've been in rooms full of salespeople where the customer, they'll ask that question, how you doing? The client will say, I'm okay. And the sales says, oh, yeah, well, that's good. You don't think that the client on the other end says, alert, 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 this person doesn't care about me, he's just trying to sell me something. Let me tell you something, it's so profoundly important that your tonalities in those first few seconds, that person just says, wow, this is not like the other people I speak to. This person actually cares. This person actually cares how I feel. Now watch what would happen without tonality. See, tonality, remember I called it the secret weapon of influence? Here's why it's the secret weapon, because it's an unspoken language of communication. You're actually saying things that they're hearing without you saying it and without them knowing it. So I say to you, watch, John, how you going today? And you're like, wow, he really cares. I couldn't say to you, John, how are you going today? I really want to know because I really care about you. He'd say, what an idiot this person is. How disingenuous is that? They would say, what's stupid? Oh, he's just telling me he really cares. He doesn't even know me. You could never say the words The words simply don't exist in a greeting to say to someone, I really care about you, I really want to know. There's no words for that, but there's a tonality for it. So each of these tonalities, they essentially chunk up to this very, very high level of rapport, which says, I care, I really want to know, I have your best interest at heart, all those things that open up a person to be influenced. And as salespeople, that's what we do. We influence people to go from a state where they're, kind of certain, they think it's pretty good. We influence them to a state where they're absolutely certain about our product. That's what we do. And tonality, that ability to manage your voice in a way where you create an unconscious dialogue in the other person. They actually start hearing words that you're not saying. You end up controlling the conversation every step of the way and have their unconscious dialogue working for you versus against you. So let's review one last time here these 8 tonal patterns. Number 1 is scarcity, that people want more of what there's less than, and we do that by lowering our voice in this sort of stressed urgency. Remember, it's scarcity / urgency. Second tonality is your reasonable man tone. I'm reasonable, you're reasonable, let's do it. So, got a minute? Fair enough. Sound fair enough? Reasonable man tone versus sound fair enough? We're like, oh my God, no, it doesn't sound fair, right? So it's your reasonable man tone. Number 3 is absolute certainty. This thing really does make sense. So it comes from here. It's that power inside, which said with force, not screamed, but absolute certainty. Then you have the I care tone, okay, which is, again, like that I really want to know. They go hand in hand. Okay. Next, you have using a question when there should be a declarative. So that's where I start off and say, Jordan Belford calling from Sales Acuity in Australia. And they're like, who, what? When you paralyze their internal dialogue and you move forward then and they're still listening and in state versus judging you and hanging up on you, right? Next, we have our series of 3 uptones where we hook in 3 uptones together and we create this sort of picture like where they just want to agree with us. We're like, right, right, right. The unspoken words like Jordan Belfort from Sales Acuity, right, right, right. And they're like, uh-huh. And they just agree with you. So watch what happens in that situation where they would actually not really know who you are, but just say, uh-huh, yeah, I heard of you, simply because they want to agree because of the tonality. Next, we have our presupposing tone, which is where we talk about something in such powerful terms that it's not even a question of whether or not you'll make money here. It's not a question whether it's good or bad. We already know that. Now, you can't say to someone, John, it's not a question of whether or not you'll like this. We all know you're going to like that. If you say, I'll say, no, I don't. You couldn't say it to the guy. So instead, you say, it's like, not a question of, whether or not it works. By the tonality, he's like, and you move past it, and all of a sudden he's like, uh-huh, and you're transitioning to something else, and bam, you've established that, yes, he's on the same page with you. And then lastly, the I really want to know tone, which is hand in hand with I care. How you doing today? How you going today? I really want to know. That unspoken phrase, I really want to know that I care about you. So these tonalities, when used at the right times and done exactly in the right fashion, using the right pitch, is going to allow you to move your client emotionally to a spot of absolute certainty, and they won't really even know why. It's the words that will give them the logic. Yeah, A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 is 2. Yeah, that's the words, that's logic, but it's that other part, that tonal, that emotional move that's going to have them to that spot of, yeah, let's do it. And you get those 2 elements, logic and emotion, lined up at the highest level, that's when people start to buy. You might say, well, people, really see through this stuff. Guess what? They don't. They almost can't. It's not, and just, I'm not saying that if you just use these tonalities, you're going to close a sale automatically. What I'm saying is if you don't use them, you're going to blow a sale. And if you use these tonalities again and again and again to keep that person's unconscious dialogue right in lockstep with yours, along with the right words, and you do things in the right order, the right syntax, then wow, this collectively, this tonality
just is just unbelievably powerful, unbelievably effective, and it's almost like it's the enhancer to everything else that you do. It just kicks it up a notch. So I always, what I do when I write a script for myself or I'm in any situation, I first will think, where are the tonal changers? Where should I raise my voice? Where should I lower my voice? Where should I speed up? Where should I slow down? Very often in scripts, when I see a real novice salesperson, they don't understand that, human speech is not said, "Hello, Victoria, how are you today?" The enemy of all influence with tonality is what's called constancy, being constant. The same thing again and again and again, people will just tune out.
Now, I want to close this first part by going back just one more time to this idea of the gestures that you have, these sort of physiological gestures that help you support each tonality, and how you can use your physiology, essentially, to trigger the tonalities you want, whether you're on the phone or in person.
So if I want to be certain, I have this thing I do. I go like this. As soon as I'm certain, I always, if I get like kind of hyped up on something, I'll say, "Believe me," and I will actually smack my hand into the back of my other hand, right? Now, I can actually do this either way. Either I can get certain in my head first, make my tone certain, and then this follows, or I can actually lead with the movement.
Now, for you, certainly might be something different. So what you need to do is you go home tonight and just, talk about something, anything like the sun rising that you're certain about. Like, I just know that sun is going to rise tomorrow morning. That sun always rises, it's going to rise. And you'll notice that when you talk about something, you'll notice you make a gesture. And either watch yourself in a mirror and see what you do, or have your wife or your partner or whatever it might be, someone that can help you just to analyze what you're doing, give you feedback, and you'll notice that you can link a gesture to pretty much every tonality that you make. So first is certainty. Next is scarcity, where you lower. See, for me, it's like almost I pray and I narrow my eyes. Listen, there's only 5 of these left, or believe me, if you do this now, and I'm just making it, that's implying that something's in short supply, it's urgent. Right? And with that goes along, of course, is that tone of it being a secret, you're whispering.
I've had situations where I'm training people, like, in a group setting, and some woman could not actually lower her voice and tell a secret. I said, "Tell a secret." "Well, Jordan, the reason that you should be," I'm like, "No, lower your voice." She goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan." "Well, the reason," same, she could not lower her voice. So I said, "Do me a favor, I want you to narrow your eyes as much as possible and squeeze your fingers together like this." So she's like this, "Well, Jordan, and as soon as she used the physiological anchor, it triggered the tonality.
Notice what I do, and then go home and notice what you do, either in the mirror or have someone watch. You'll see that you make these certain gestures that help you elicit each tonality. Okay? So that's something you gotta do for yourself, because it simply is gonna make it so much easier for you. So let's just say you're in a situation you're really not feeling that certain. You're just not in a state of certainty. But you know that in order to get the client over the line, you're gonna have to sound absolutely certain. What you're gonna do is you're gonna fire off that physiological anchor, it's called, where you just, bing, you're just anchored into that, and you just get yourself into a state of absolute certainty, or absolute scarcity, or the reasonable man tone, where you can say, "Got a minute?" and your hands go up in the air. Each tonality has its own gesture. Yours slightly different than mine, but we all have them. And when you hook those two together, the appropriate physiology with the appropriate tonality, and use the right words, guess what? That's pure straight line communication. That's communicating on all levels, not just with the words. And when you do that, along with the tactics you're going to learn in terms of how you actually take someone down the straight line, so to speak, from the open to the close, and get them from a state of uncertainty to absolute certainty, again, you get to that spot where you can close pretty much everyone who's closable. So now either you could take a quick break here and assimilate some of this knowledge, or I suggest you plow right into the body language section of this module. How to actually move your body, how to use your body to help you get into that super tight rapport with somebody, and essentially get to that high level of communication that we strive for with the straight line, which is total congruency of words, body, and tonality. See you soon.